Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 82nd Annual International Open Exhibition Awards Reception. I'm Deborah Roscoff. I am the acting president of NWWS. Tonight, I'll be your host, along with Peggy Myers, who will be carefully watching your comments and questions in the chat space, and Molly Murrah, who is back of stage. She is assisting with the slideshow, so to speak. And of course, Andy Evansen, who has been one of our most favorite jurors ever, that has partnered with us for this great exhibition. And, you know, we have occupied all of Andy's time this week. He has had very little time for himself. We've had a great 4-day workshop, and we had a live demo at our general meeting on Tuesday, and all of this from 2 time zones away because he's in Minnesota. We've asked a lot from him this week, and he has been on point the entire time. So, Andy, after this evening, you can rest. As most of you know, we are in the process of building a new website, and we've asked a lot from you during this time because we ask that you, the artist, work with a new show entry system, the cafe call for entry system. And although we're all used to the way we've done it for so long, entering through the NWWS website, everybody came through, the change went smoothly, and as a result, the reach of NWWS grew. And so we ended up with close to 20% more entries than last year. We had entries from 17 different countries and 39 states. So we are just delighted at all of this participation, and the result has been that you're going to see some absolutely beautiful paintings this evening. And all of these pieces are for sale. 75% of the purchase price goes directly to the artist. So when you choose your favorite painting this evening, you can call our treasurer, Shirley Jordan. Her telephone number is on the screen. However, alternatively, you don't need to scramble and write this down. You can go to our website and find the same information on the International Open page. After we close this evening, all of the images, the gallery will be up on that page, and you can peruse all of the paintings, and then call Shirley with the one you want to purchase. One of the awards each year is the Purchase Award. The NWWS president and the exhibition chair work together, and they select a painting, and NWWS purchases it for $1,000. This becomes part of our permanent collection. Although the permanent collection is housed at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle, and unfortunately it's not open to the public, but if you'd like to go back and see the paintings that we've selected over the years, you can always find those paintings. We have a gallery on the website, so I encourage you to go look at them because they are fabulous. So before we celebrate these 75 extraordinary paintings and the deserving award winners, I'd like to thank some of our volunteers, because these volunteers are the foundation for a successful show. So first, I'd like to thank our exhibition chair, Alicia Harvey. Alicia did a wonderful job and brought terrific organization and professionalism to the task. She kept all of us rowing in the same direction. She was always comfortable leading the way, even though this was the first exhibition she's ever chaired. So thanks, Alicia. You did a terrific job. You frequently see Peggy Myers as our chat monitor in our meetings, as she is this evening, but she has also become our digital curator. Thank you, Peggy, because you do a big job. She's the one that takes a magnifying glass to all of your information in the images. She prepares that information and gets it all to the juror so he can do his or her job. Thank you, Peggy, because there's a lot of hours that you spend on that task. You also know Peggy as our past treasurer. Last year, she turned that position over to Shirley Jordan, And Shirley Jordan, as treasurer, is the one that handles all of the financial management associated with the exhibition. She is also past president, and we thank Shirley for all that she does now and everything she's done before. And also Karen Robinette. Thank you, Karen. Karen is the coordinator for all of our workshops, and she's been doing just that all week, working with Andy to make it the success it has been. Andy's workshop sold out in just a couple of hours, and it's what we hear about it has just been fabulous. In fact, we've already received unsolicited emails thanking us for such a valuable workshop. And the energy that Andy has is just so impressive. He just seems to keep on going. I'm sure you all noticed that during his demo at our meeting just a couple of nights ago. He can paint, keep painting, paint fast, talk, explain, and teach almost without taking a breath. We're very impressed. And our marketing team we'd like to thank is, again, Karen Robinette, Molly Murrah, Sarah Love, and myself. We are the ones that get the word out. Sarah, in particular, is steadily busy with all of our public relations. She guides our a team of 4 on our social media platforms, and that's becoming more and more important all of the time. So thank you, Sarah, for your good work. And our webmaster, Jody Steele. Jody keeps the website current, and we couldn't do it without her. She's attentive to all things NWWS, and she does this year round. Thanks, Jody, because I know a lot of what I ask you to do, you're doing very, very late at night. And thank you also to Debbie Hegman and Shilpa Vatsavi. After many years of skillfully minding all things data oriented, Debbie passed the baton on to Shilpa, and she's doing a wonderful, wonderful job and is always ready to answer all of our questions, many of which are very, very unusual. Lastly, Eileen McMacken. Eileen is our awards chair. Thank you, Eileen, because you are the one that works with our very valuable patrons. You put the awards together, and she is responsible for getting the awards out to all of our winners. In fact, tonight we are so pleased that our awards total upwards of $10,000 in cash and merchandise. So she has an important job. I would like to briefly thank and introduce our juror for the 2022 Annual International Open Exhibition, a well-known artist and extraordinary instructor, Andy Evansen. He has worked as a medical illustrator, and in the 1990s, you can imagine the focus, the complexity, and the detail that was required to do that. And so when he worked in watercolor, that was a complete digression from his dailiness of being a medical illustrator. So he has forever admired the British artists like Trevor Chamberlain, David Curtis, and many others. So it was natural that his style followed a similar path. He captures common everyday scenes that somebody else might just pass right by. And he's always striving to reveal an economy of brushstroke, something that allows watercolor to do what it does so very well, which is glow. He is a signature member of the American Watercolor Society, the Transparent Watercolor Society, and notably the Northwest Watercolor Society. So before you begin, Andy, I would like to ask you a couple of questions. We've done this before with our jurors, and I hope they're the kind of questions that someone from the audience would ask if we actually had an in-person audience tonight. So my first question is, and I do have a follow-up, my first question is, I'm sure every juror has a personal process for curating an exhibition, but could you tell us about your process? How do you know if a particular painting should be included, and how do you handle it when it was really difficult to make selections and you have to select one over another? How do you wrestle with all that?
Yeah, that's the heartbreaking part, right? Of every juror that has to go through. thanks for having me, by the way, tonight. Yeah, I guess, like most jurors, I assume, do the same general process. When I get all the entries, I quickly go through, not quickly, I go through the whole show, which in this case, as you mentioned at the start, that was a whole lot of paintings
Mhm.
from a whole lot of countries. But I just like to, without any kind of judgmental process in my head at that point, just go through all the images and just kind of get a feeling for what the task is ahead of me and see what's out there. And then I go through it a little bit more carefully the second time around. And at that point, I'm probably already kind of earmarking, some of the paintings that really stood out in my mind. Those are usually, the most impressive. I'm not really, establishing best in show already at that point, but it's kind of, you start to get a feel that one's got to be in the show. I do try and make a pretty solid effort of, including a lot of different styles. I think that's important. There's most watercolor exhibitions, and this one was no exception. You get a lot of beautiful portrait entries, and there are so many of them that deserve to be in, but only 75 paintings out of almost 700 entries. I can't have 50 portraits, so unfortunately, I have to start whittling a handful of those out, and that's usually one of the most difficult parts of the jurying, because and that, again, this show is no exception. I left out some really nice portrait work, unfortunately, but it is what it is. You can't have all the work in there. But it's, again, abstraction, looseness, tightness, portraits, landscape. I want to show it all. I think that's important for not only us as artists to feel included and not just start to see the same work accepted in all the shows, but also for the general public viewing the show. The watercolor is a very versatile medium, and I want to make sure that all these notions of watercolor being a real tight kind of wishy-washy medium that are still out there, unfortunately, those misnomers, and show them what the possibilities are with watercolor. It's just it's a medium that we use to express our artistic vision. And so, yes, there's a lot of technical aspects involved with the medium of watercolor that you have to pay attention to and give credit to. But there's also the expressive side of it that I want to make sure is out there, included in the show and the awards also, and make sure I'm nurturing that. So yeah, that's basically it. And then, like I said, usually when I narrow it down, in this case, there were 75. It was like, okay, this is what I want in the show. And there were about 90, between 90 and 100. And then that takes like a whole day of agony of, going back and forth, which ones are, am I going to have to exclude and which ones am I going to put in? And at that point, I start, kind of maybe nitpicking a little bit more about some of the aspects of it. But when it comes right down to it, a lot of times when I'm looking at, especially the top paintings, it's like, boy, I wish I could paint that, or I wish I had that painting on my wall. Those are the ones that are really exceptional to me. And I think that's when the subjective nature of jurying kind of takes over as well. There are a lot of objective parts of the jurying process that you have to take into consideration, all the design elements and technical expertise and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes down to it, as much as you like to say that that part of it isn't going to be part of it, art is a very subjective thing. And yeah, when it comes down to those top awards, that's usually what kind of pushes it over. So
Do you find that when you're judging those top awards, do you find that what you do on a Tuesday might be different than the ones you would select for the top awards on a Thursday?
yeah.
You ever
Yep.
change your mind?
Yep, you go back and forth a lot, actually, and that's not to diminish anybody who got an award tonight. Every time you look at it, again, that goes back to the subjective nature of it, and a lot of times it's just what's going on in your life at that time. But I mean, it's rare. I mean, I wouldn't be changing everything around all the time, but yeah, especially when it gets to those top 5 or something. which one deserves best in show,
Because it is
and it
subjective,
is a
yeah.
big deal. Yeah. And I used to get down on myself. I'm sure everybody does when you first start entering shows and getting into them. And why am I not getting an award? And, all this and that. And this show is a little bit of an outlier in the fact that it's a very strong, important international show, and it's only one juror. AWS has a
Mhm.
committee of jurors. I judged TWSA, and it was two of us, so it doesn't come down to one person, and that adds a whole nother level of stress and subjectivity to it when it's just one person's opinion. And it's important for the artist to realize that as well. I mean, you hear that all the time. I've entered paintings and shows that didn't even get in, and then it got an award in another show. So again, that's the nature of art. So you can't get too high or too low. On the flip side, when you don't, if you don't get in, it's hard. But on the flip side, like I said, when you win an award, you can't just rest on your laurels and think it's going to happen again and again, because it humbles you awfully quickly too.
You do hear those stories, what you're
Yeah,
talking about. You get in this one and then same painting might be rejected in another one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So my next question is a little more general. I know that you are traveling a lot
Mhm.
and you have a lot of sense of what is happening out in the art world. So do you have an idea or a sense of direction for the future of watercolor artists, art organizations such as ours, or other, any watercolor worldwide, especially considering the changes of the last 3 years?
Yeah. I think just because of the amount of, surprisingly, in the midst of a pandemic, I think because of Zoom and virtual ways that we can all connect, in a lot of ways, we've connected with each other as artists in ways that we didn't used to before. It used to be a lot of personal workshops. People would travel to attend your workshop in person, and you had maybe a couple of international students, if any at all. And now you have a Zoom workshop, and people are coming in literally from all over the world to take your workshops. And so that it kind of goes in two directions, actually. I think in a lot of ways you're exposed to maybe a lot of different techniques that you wouldn't have otherwise been exposed to otherwise. You're seeing a lot more. I mean, I go on my Instagram feed and it's just, oh my gosh, who's this artist? I never heard of this person before, and that's exciting because it's important to just constantly be presented with new ideas and new stimulation. You never know when you're going to see something that might prompt your art to go in a different direction as well. It's real easy to just kind of stay static, like I was saying. But again, in some ways, it almost hinders exploration too, because I think people know who the people out there on Instagram are that have the largest followings and the most likes and all that kind of stuff. And you see even more of that now, where artists are mimicking each other, I think, a little bit too much, trying to get likes on their social media page. And that's the sad part of it, unfortunately. So, and I know those two don't really jive. In one way you're exposed to a lot of things and you're getting, you're exploring more. In another way, it's kind of inhibiting creativity. But I see a lot of both of that, oddly, in the art world right now. But I think this new International Watercolor Society organization, not new, but they're really prevalent now. And I've been getting invited to exhibit and attend workshops in Greece and Bavaria and Asia and Albania this coming spring, and Kiev in Ukraine. They're sprouting up all over the place. So this whole watercolor community is really becoming very tight knit, which is fun to see.
So do you see, we always think of ourselves, well, we always talk about the gold standard of oil painting. Do you
Mhm.
think that the stature of watercolor is being elevated in general? Or are we kind of staying the same, or?
I think it's going to take a little bit longer in this country, sadly. It's still I think it's elevated more so in Asia, definitely from what I've seen, the large events that they put on. It's very revered in India. It's still looked at as a very popular exhibition medium in Britain and in the UK as well, which is why I'm trying to teach there more, make some more inroads over in England. But it just kind of, yeah, I don't know why it never really took hold here as an important medium, and kind of always been looked at as a sketching medium, and the museums and the galleries still haven't quite embraced it yet, sadly. I'm in a lot of organizations, you know, the Plein Air Painters of America, we have almost 50 artists in it. And I think there's 2 of us who do watercolor. It's almost all oil painters. And you get into the big exhibitions, and you know, people expect to pay $20,000 for an oil painting, and the same size watercolor maybe 1,000 or 2,000. You know, so it's going to take a while, I think, yet for watercolor to continue to make those inroads. But I firmly believe it's happening slowly but surely. There's a lot of important artists doing important work, and again, that's why I like to make sure the exhibitions that I have are not just focusing on the technique aspect of watercolor, and you know, maybe embrace a little bit more of the expressive aspect of it in the art world.
Well, we'll see some of that tonight, and I would say an exhibition that everyone's about to see tonight is going to go a long way toward elevating watercolor stature. So thank you for all that.
Yep.
Now, if everybody could just kind of imagine a round of applause for Andy and everything he's done this week for us. Now's the time when I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can present all of this fabulous work.
All right, prepare for my throat to be hoarse. Here we go. Congratulations to everyone, by the way. New Bonnet. This was a very impressive painting. This was one of the early ones going through the show that I knew would be included for sure. It's kind of interesting when you squint at this painting, how strong those large shapes, the light shapes and the dark shapes are. It almost looks like it could be a woodblock print. But it's a shame, again, you know, if you do get a chance. I don't remember, is this show going to be physically hung somewhere, available for viewing? Is it all strictly online?
Online.
Okay. Yeah, this is one of those paintings I wish I could have seen in person, because I like the fact that the background was just that big, strong, dark shape to really emphasize the gorgeous forms of those 2 elegant women. But I have a feeling there's a lot of subtle texture back there that I just can't pick up on a small computer screen, unfortunately. But yeah, beautiful use of positive, negative shapes in this one. The boldness of it, I think, just kind of adds to the elegance and quiet dignity of the scene. And then obviously this artist is very skilled in creating, you know, convincing textures, the blouse, the dress, that metallic bucket down on the ground is incredible. So congratulations. That's a beautiful work, Dennis. Dockside. This has a really fun design. At first, I was kind of taken aback by those strong, that strong use of color right there close to the center. But the more I thought about it, the more it didn't bother me. I really enjoyed it, actually. It was just kind of a bold use of color there. And it's still, despite the fact that that strong color is there, you definitely get the sense of this progression going back into space from that front boat to the middle boat to the background boats. There's just that very slight decrease in value and definition in those forms as it goes back into the distance. And again, the eye is just kind of allowed to travel through this piece, starting at the reflection at the bottom center, up into that boat, into these other boats, up the rigging lines to the background. And you know, this artist has definitely managed to capture a feeling of, I mean, it just looks like it's oceanside sea air, that bright sparkling salt air. So that's a really well done painting too. Congratulations, Karen. Next. Spinnaker. Even without that title, this just has such a nautical feel to it. I love it, that the shape of that sailboat, that abstraction of the sailboat on the right hand side, you know, it kind of gives the sense of rigging of sailboats and waves, and of course the nautical blue that we have, blue and whites throughout the painting. So a spinnaker, I believe, is a special type of sail on a sailboat. I'm not a sailor, but yeah, this is a really nice abstract piece. I think the the one thing I wish I would have seen on this, I know this isn't a critique session either, but I love the little touches of orange. I maybe would have liked to see just one little larger area of the warm color somewhere in this. But otherwise, yeah, it's a really nice piece. Congratulations, Neil. Or Nell. Entranced. And let me say, I mean, a lot of these paintings, by the way, wonderful titles. It makes me think a little bit more about the painting, and that's important, instead of just calling it Untitled 1 or Untitled 4. Perfect title for this one. You get the sense of, just looking at this painting, I kind of picture a high school kid on a field trip, seeing something awe-inspiring for the first time, if it's the cathedral ceiling or whatever it is, and just really being taken aback and awestruck by it. His posture, the way his mouth is a little slack-jawed, that beautiful stained glass window behind him, and then that kind of that interesting shape behind him, almost like wings. I thought was kind of a cool choice, framing him as well, almost like that moment in his life is a kind of transformative moment for him, sprouting his butterfly wings. But yeah, really cool painting. Thanks, Marnie. Next. Fairy stick. What a charming painting this is also. That sense of wonderment of just having a sparkler on the 4th of July. That was us as kids. 4th of July, like everything else in our world now, has gone completely over the top, with people spending thousands of dollars. But when I was a kid, we had the little snakes that you would light, and they would crawl out, and the caps that we'd hit either with a gun or a hammer, and then or a little cap gun, and sparklers, and that was about it. But we used to love running around the yard with a sparkler. And it just kind of speaks to, that wonderment of sitting, or also, staring at flames. Who hasn't just sat around a campfire and just stared at the light with that kind of a sense too? So this painting does a beautiful job of exuding that kind of emotion. And I love the mystery, the black behind the child too, kind of looking towards the light and in the middle of the blackness. So we used to do that too as kids. My grandma had a huge willow tree, and it had a big canopy, and it was so dark underneath it at night, and we'd run under there with our sparklers. So very emotional piece. I loved it. Next, please. Gathering the Light. And again, I'll say it again, there were so many good portraits, and going through the awards, or the awards and the acceptances, I hope that's okay. There are a lot of portraits in here, but it was just agonizing trying to figure out which ones to include and which ones not to. But this was another charming one. And I don't mean this as any kind of denigration or anything, but it just kind of reminds me of Mrs. Roper from that old show, Three's Company, downstairs, the kind of eccentric old lady dressed that way, and Gathering the Light. Really great capture of a personality of this figure, of this person in this painting, and I thought it deserved to be in. Nice job. Really cool design on this one, burnt red. The eye just kind of travels through all these wonderful lines, textures going back into the distance. I love the variety of textures in this, between the old bent rotting boards on the side there, the rusty bucket, back to the shed, the trees, and what a bold choice it was to put that red shape, along the edge of the painting. Normally people would be tucking that in or making the bucket red. That's just a little bit too obvious. It still works, having that red shape over on the side of the painting, and it's bounced a little bit into the rest of the painting too, that red color into the wood around the window and in the building in the back. And I really love the way the artist was able to convincingly paint the buckets. That looks like an old, I'm not sure what that is, an old boat motor or something sitting up in the background there. Just, not overdoing it at all. The grass was important to simplify that grass area too. Climbing My Soul. Oops, we're going a little faster. There we go. this is such a beautifully expressive portrait too. This lady is just so beautiful and charming and soulful. That warm background pouring out around her just gives a feeling of pure joy and a comfort of her own skin. Just, yeah, really stunning portrait once again. And that tattoo on her arm, incredible the way that's indicated. Trinity, powerful design, almost monochromatic, 3 colors, brown, black, and white. You know, you think of the Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. This is the female version of that. The way these two, I'm assuming daughters, are looking up at their mother so adoringly, the importance of motherhood in life, and the way they're all linked together in that one big shape. They're individual people, but that white shape, all is just one unit, inseparable, stuck against that stark background. Very powerful painting, very emotional. I like it a lot. Next, sorry. Cascading Ladies. It's a different kind of a floral painting. You don't see many like this, but I was really happy to see it because it kind of speaks to the delicacy of petals of flowers and leaves. Also, a lot of floral paintings are very powerful and strong and colorful, and rightly so. But this one was unusual, like I said, in the way that it just kind of treated it more as, like I said, these fragile little petals in a very light touch, a different way. So I wanted to make sure I included this one in the show also. It's a really nice painting, Valerie. Next, please. Riverside. It was so fun to look at the rendering of those tree branches. In a way, it almost looked like the artist is paying more attention to the negative space between the branches than the branches themselves. And it gave the whole thing this very convincing, organic nature. These branches, these are some of the coolest branches I've ever seen rendered in watercolor. Really fun painting to look at and study. Like I said, all the different shapes. And then the fact that, it's basically the 3 primary colors, and the foreground has all 3, red, yellow, and blue, red being the warmest. And then the middle ground just has the yellow and blue, taking out the red, the warmest color. And then the background just has the blue, and getting that recession through the use of just kind of eliminating some of those primary colors. But yeah, very, very beautiful painting. I liked it a lot. And this one, don't get a big head, but this almost looks like it could have been a Sargent watercolor. Those amazingly expressive brush strokes, just so much energy. Normally when you're handling a figure like this, you feel like you have to take a little more time and cares, but to indicate the hands and around the face and stuff, you see people start to slow down and the shapes lose their energy as they get closer to those aspects of the figure. But this one, the energy is everywhere with it, and again, it's unusual because it's just a reclining figure, and it doesn't have these big calm areas. That's that kind of frenetic brushwork that Sargent employed in his people, these relaxing figures out in the pasture, or on a painting day or riverbank. They're very energetic paintings, despite the fact that these figures are laying down and sleeping, and this one really kind of had that feeling to it as well. I like this a lot. Next, please. Won't Cry Today. Very expressive painting, especially in these times that we're going through. I mean, people are going through rough times always, but again, like I was saying, not all portraits need to be technically precise and showing all the accurate skin tones and stuff. Sometimes it's important to convey an emotion. And this one almost didn't even need a title. You can just sense the struggles and the agony of this person. Really striking portrait. It was, yeah, this one really kind of took me aback when I saw it. I thought it was an outstanding painting. Next, please. Shipwrecked. Kind of a fun abstract, balancing those more organic forms that you would kind of associate with under the sea, the bubbles or coral or barnacles or whatever. And then this, this intrusive shape of the textured wood coming down and covering it up and lying on top of it, almost like it's been down there a long time and starting to decay. Some of it's transparent and you can see the ocean floor underneath it. Cool title, cool painting. I liked it. Next, please. This artist had, many of you did, had a series of paintings that I had to choose from, and it was difficult, more than difficult sometimes, kind of going back and forth on which one I wanted to put into the show. And I'll mention it now, and I might bring it up again later. That's, I've judged shows where people have entered 3 paintings, up to their limit, and all 3 of them are vastly different. And I can't see names; they just give us like an artist ID, so I know they're by the same person. But I kind of want to see, me speaking personally as a judge, I don't want to see an artist that's all over the map. Like, you haven't developed a style, you took a workshop and painted this way, and you took another workshop and did that painting or something like that. This artist had a really cool series of people just kind of in their living spaces. There was one that was just someone at work by her desk and her computer looking at the artist. I'm not sure if this is a self-portrait or not. It says "When I Am Alone." It could be. But again, just being there in your space, nothing extravagant about it or particularly poignant, just being who you are, and maybe speaking a little bit more to the banality of everyday life. And I was impressed by all the paintings by this artist, and this is the one I chose to put into the show. I liked it. Next. Secrets. You kind of get that sense of a teenage girl not telling you everything she's supposed to be saying. Love the expression on her face, love the glowing colors on her cheek. And I like the way that subtle pattern on the wallpaper in the background was, again, very subtly, even more subtly so, carried into the colors of that, or carried into the skin, into the side of her face and the chin, and even down into her shirt a bit. It just kind of helps to bring the whole thing together. So I like the way this was painted, and I like the subtlety of all that. Beautiful painting. Next, please. The sun's blessing. What is the sun's blessing? Life, energy, this green planet that we have. That's what gave me the sense when I looked at this scene also. Kind of this universal energy pouring through here on the planet. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be the sun or the earth. I kind of picture it a little bit more as our green earth on there getting some life, but just really unique in that, almost like that tubular shape winding through it, that 3-dimensional tube shape that the artist was able to create, as if it was going through space and time, winding through. And then the way that shape is broken up once in a while with the little splashes of wet into wet shapes coming out of it, so it's not too static and boring. Again, very energetic piece, and with a great title. Nice piece, Linda. Next, please. On a Mission. I love seeing paintings like this too, this old stone bleached architecture, but the way that Michael has handled it here with the amount of color, that just beautiful balance of warm, cool, that reflected bounced light under the balcony there, how warm that is, because the strong warm sunlight hitting the surface of the ground and bouncing back up, reflected up in there. It just adds a lot of convincing space to this painting when you can notice subtle things like that. And it doesn't, I'm not sure, I'm assuming it wasn't masked or anything. And I love the little negative shapes that he created with the statues and that kind of elaborate organic shape above the doorway. I'd rather see little shapes like that are just painted by the artist's brush, even if they're a little bit off. I don't care if those statues are perfect. I love those negative shapes that they're created. It adds a kind of life to a scene that's it's not, obviously it's a static scene, it's a doorway and a stone wall, but it still has a great energy because of all those wonderful shapes the artist created. Next, please. Vermilion billboard. Just such a unique subject. When I came across this, I thought that deserved, again, to be in the show. I mean, we leave our marks everywhere in this world, and people carving names into trees and writing on rocks and stones with chalk, or pieces of sandstone and things like that. But the thought of somebody actually writing an advertisement out there on a cliff, I don't know if this artist actually came across this or if this is from imagination. I'm assuming it was actually there, but just a really cool subject, well handled. It looks like it was written in chalk many years ago and is starting to weather and fade away due to the elements. And that sagebrush down there, that sagebrush, that splash of green was really important too, to just kind of balance the whole thing out with all those other violets and browns and tans and stuff. So yeah, I like this one a lot too. Well done. Next, please. Whoops, a little too fast. What a fun painting. I love the expressiveness of this. This is kind of watercolor at its most basic, finest hour, when you can just grab that medium. No planning, no drawing ahead of time, just making good, solid, convincing brush strokes, and it all still holds together. Love the little figures everywhere. Love the energy. Love the indication of the chairs. Again, kind of a static scene, a bunch of people sitting under a canopy, but it's aided by just such a great, wonderful, confident brush strokes. And that takes a lot of skill to be able to do that and not just be filling in pencil marks. And the use of the white paper with all those strong navy blue shadows really adds a great feeling of powerful sunlight too. So yeah, nice painting, Diane. Congratulations. Next, please. Icelandic air. I've never been, but I was commissioned by a friend who had taken a trip to Iceland to, he just wanted me to paint the landscape from there, and he gave me a bunch of his photos, and this sure looks like what his photos look like. Just a lot of hot springs and steaming air, green, warm landscapes, almost ethereal and otherworldly. I really want to go to Iceland just because of that. And yeah, this painting, without being overly definitive, it's still very expressive, but it sure kind of gives that feeling of the Iceland landscape. I loved it a lot. That all that soft mist rising, and to paint that much of your painting wet into wet and not get any weird things happening is pretty remarkable. So well done. Sunspots. Another beautiful portrait. And again, kind of unique. I love the format of it. I love that the head was cropped top and bottom, that long, wide format. Beautiful, beautiful, subtle background. The way the hair is just blending into the background and blending up into the hat, lost edges everywhere. And then, yeah, those sunspots on the face are just so convincing. The values, the shapes, the way they turn the corner on the cheek, the way some of them are on the reflecting on her sunglasses. Very, very convincing portrayal. Nice work. Next, please. This is kind of an unusual painting, and it's divided in a lot of ways, but yet it still kind of all holds together. That front area, kind of broken off, but the edge of that green line, like a fence, like it's almost getting to the edge of a cliff, and you're looking out at a city below with the trees there, and then the city beyond it is another area, and then that area is kind of broken up with the streaks of light coming through. I'm assuming like almost like an impression of sunbeams breaking through the cloud, illuminating the city back there. Really unique, well done painting. I like it. The whole thing ties together still as a location that you're standing there looking at it, despite all of those little breaks that you've incorporated into the painting. Beautiful luminosity in the shadows. Fishing, returning in the dusk. Going from the lightest possible value, the white of the paper, to almost black on the shoulder and on the side of his chest there, and everything in between just adds such a powerful aspect to this painting. It's remarkable, the use of value, the use of textures, that limited palette of color. Again, I love that. I'm kind of a sucker for less of that and a little bit more of the neutrals and mixing the colors, and then the little splashes of color mean a bit more. But yeah, going from that white on his forehead and very quickly coming around the corner to the wrinkles on his face and his eyes where it's almost black down there. And it still all holds together as a shape. It's just obviously a lot of skill and goes into this, a lot of study and amazing brushwork. Well done. I like the fact that it was on that white background. Next, please. Order Up. Very ambitious painting of a scene that I mean, we see this all the time. I would never think to paint something like that. But this artist did a fantastic job of organizing all that chaos, and incredible job of handling all the different shapes and textures in there. And once again, despite it all holds together. That the figure in front is connecting everything almost all the way up to the sign above her head and through it. So despite the fact that it's kind of divided horizontally with the window and all the shelving and the things stacked on the shelf, that figure standing in front of all, kind of connecting it all. The star of the show is helping out a lot in this. Just really fun to kind of keep going around this scene and looking at the stainless steel hoods in that order window, and the plastic cups and the woven baskets and the styrofoam containers. Everything is very convincing. Well done. Impressive. Next, please. Ethereum. It's just like a little calming breath of fresh air. Not everything has to be screaming for attention all the time. I have a real appreciation for subtlety, and especially when entering some of these shows. That is kind of an unfortunate aspect of a lot of these shows, especially when they're judged online. You kind of feel like you have to go for impact all the time. It's just kind of one of those things in the back of your mind. How am I going to make my painting stand out among 700 entries being looked at a computer screen? But this was really just kind of a nice, subtle, beautiful treat of a painting to look at. I loved it. The nice, sensitive use of color. That sky is just so beautiful and peaceful. The foreground is broken up just enough to be convincing. A little pathway through all the grasses leading off to that hill in the background. Lovely painting. Thanks for entering. Next, please. At Home. Love the way that the balance of all the shapes in here. The cool in the back to the warm in the middle and back to the cool down below. And despite all of the, obvious planning that went into this of where everything was going to be, the hard edges, underneath it all, there's still a lot of that luminosity in the large shapes. That's important, I think, especially when you're dealing with watercolor, that, if you're going to go this detailed, that's great. But underneath it all, it's all held together, and it still has that beautiful glow, because when you look through a lot of those smaller shapes, you're seeing a lot of what makes watercolor so beautiful in the larger shapes underneath. So yeah, Anne's an impressive painter too. This is a good one. Congratulations. Next, please. Just a beautiful little landscape. Again, this artist displays a wonderful flair with their brush, with the shape making. It looks like there was very minimal drawing involved. Just having that confidence to go at it with your brush I love the way that the trees are defining the light rooftops without surrounding them entirely. That little bit of a lost edge at the peak of that main big barn, being able to bleed into the sky and the little side offshoot too. Just enough having those trees to define it and let the viewer's eye kind of fill in the rest. It's well designed. The placement of the that dark tree behind the lighter rooftop is at a really good spot up there in the top right third, and just letting that pathway be soft like that. I'm not sure I would have done that, and I applaud you for doing that because it works really well. It doesn't have to be a stark linear shape going into the painting. We know that it kind of appears like it's getting overgrown. It's a little bit more of an abandoned place, and the grasses and the weeds are taking over that way. So, and I just love those shapes coming in from the bottom right. Again, those are just some of those things that maybe they're just intuitive. You make those marks. It's nothing that really you can plan for that much, and they either work or they don't, and you just get a gut feeling for it. And in this case, they work great to anchor the whole painting. So, nice one. Next, please. You Don't Know Me. Solid. I love people that aren't afraid to break the rules, the composition rules. One of my favorite Wyeth paintings is Mrs. Kerner in her kitchen, and it's this huge painting, and she's sitting right at the edge of the painting with looking out of the painting, out the window, and behind her is just this stark wall with a few odds and ends hanging on the stone wall in the interior of their old farmhouse. Rules are meant to be broken, and this artist she is turning back into the viewing area there and looking at us, but the fact that she's kind of going right off, and you've got that beautiful deep texture of her hair disappearing into the background was a really bold choice. I appreciate you doing that. It's nice. And then again, this portrait is another incredible one. The colors, the surfaces, the way she modeled the forehead, the eye socket, the nose, the cheek, underneath the mouth, everything is just really, really well done. I applaud you for your skills. Next, please. Sunlit Snow. Dan's a fellow Minnesotan, and we know our snow. Dan is no exception. Most people leave snow too colorless. Dan's got some great warmth in the snow here, which balances off all those cool shadows beautifully. It's not easy to organize that chaos in the woods, even in the winter scene when things are simplified a little bit. And his shadows are kind of laid in almost at the exact right time, where some of them are a little hard edged, some of them are starting to soften and fuzz. There's just a great, wonderful variety in those edges throughout this whole painting. And it was really important to have that one kind of an oak tree that still has some of the reddish orange leaves up there as well, to kind of, again, break up all the blacks and the cool blues and stuff throughout the rest of the scene. Really well done. I love all the negative, positive shapes throughout it. Very convincing. Nice painting. Next, please. Her Attitude. You can say that again. This is kind of an unusual portrait in that, most of the time we kind of focus on the figure themselves and less on their trappings. And in this case, the skin of her face and her arm and even her hair is rendered pretty simplistically, with the exception maybe the back of her hair is really nice. But a lot of what this artist chose to focus on are her trappings, her funky sunglasses and her jewelry and that amazing shirt. I mean, look at the detail put into that shirt compared to the arm next to it, So for whatever reason, that just added this really kind of impactful emotion into this scene. I like this quite a bit, Molly. Well done. Next, please. Slow Walk in the Rain. How many of us would paint a rainy scene and use all kind of geometric shapes? That's not what you typically would associate with a rainy scene. You're going to see all these soft edges and soft reflections. And I love the fact that this artist was able to still convey this sense of, I mean, and it's not always a depressing, gray, cold, scene either. And I've been in China when it rains, and this is exactly what happened. Life goes on. It's still energetic. There's still chaos and things happening everywhere. It's just everybody's under an umbrella. And it's still a very beautiful, energetic scene. So really like that this artist chose to depict the scene this way with all those fun geometric shapes, right down to my favorite part is the way he handled the reflections down below with those jagged rectangles and things. Real fun painting to look at. I love the style of this artist. Nice work. Next, please. This artist, I've judged a handful of shows over the last several years, and I've seen this artist's work pop up in many. And I hope I get a chance to meet him at some point because his work is so unique. I just love the stories that they tell and don't tell. It's just the paintings that make you think. You're looking at it, and what in the world is going on here? You're going all over the place, and the narrative that starts to develop is just so cool. A lot of times he shows his figures floating a little bit above the ground plane for some reason. I'm not sure what that's about either. And that white bulldog appears a lot. I'm assuming that's the artist's best friend, his painting companion, the bulldog. But yeah, this was just another example of what I was saying, how art is, yes, it's a watercolor show. And, you tend to focus on the techniques of watercolor, the wet into wet and all the things that it can do. But first and foremost, it's an art show. And I love seeing people with an expressive, unique vision in their work in here. And this is really well done. Next, please. Black gown. Another very emotional, descriptive portrait. Kind of tugs at your heartstrings a little bit. I don't know, when you look at this gal. And this one, a lot like Molly's painting, her attitude, and the difference of what you pay attention to. A lot of times when you're seeing portraits, we're using the colorful areas on the figure, and then out from there it turns into black and white or less information. And it was kind of an unusual choice in this case, I thought, to use almost like just black and white charcoal or whatever, the way the paper, and that black area for the figure itself, all the important parts, her face and her hair, and then the color is in the background and in her dresses and trappings and things. So just kind of an interesting choice and how the artist did it. And I love the expressiveness of it, the handling of the paint, kind of bordering on realism and abstraction. I love works that convey that sense also. So well done, Carla, as always. Next, please. Opulence, another perfect title. Just a striking portrait of a flower, of a blossom. It just glows so beautifully. The transparent nature of watercolor is at its best, when you're seeing this kind of a scene just in your face, and then set off by those rich, deep darks around it to really make it pop even more. But they're not colorless darks. It had a lot of nice color back there in the background, and I really appreciate color, and this painting was full of it on every level, and even the whites are important in this one. So beautiful painting, Anne. Next, please. Haystack Sparkle. I've been out at that spot. I know it's again, the boldness of, a lot like that previous little landscape with the barn and the shed, of just kind of going for it with some of these brush strokes. Everything from the sky down, below the sky, is rendered a bit more realistically. The land on the left in particular is really, really nicely handled. You get a sense of some little bits of driftwood back there, that wonderful progression of the greens to the lighter blues, almost that misty atmosphere going all the way back. There's that little bit of mist under the rock on the top of the water. The figures are properly sized to give a great sense of depth and space. And then I'm assuming at the end of it all, it was just, you know, taking a leap of faith to be like, woof, 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 and make those brush strokes and bring it all to another level. I applaud you for having the courage to do that. And I think it works. It's a really strong piece, Megan. Well done. Next, please. Persimmon's Harvest. A lot like Opulence, great use of color. That violety blue sky just really makes the gold of the fruit stand out a lot. I just had such a fun time looking at this painting, looking at all the leaves and the different little veins in the leaves and the colors and the textures. And the time that it took to do that was really fun to look at. It's another nice painting. Next, please. After the Picnic. Amazing. I can't even imagine what it took to draw that basket so convincingly, let alone paint it that way. Just incredible, the amount of time and patience that it took to paint this, and skill. Yeah, what else can you say when you look at something like this? It's it's got a beautiful design. The handle of that of the basket is right there up in the sweet spot, capturing a lot of nice color and contrast. The placement of that little a little cork is important too on the blanket, catching a little bit of light and breaking that shadow shape up. It's just it's incredible when you look at a painting and you look like you can just reach in and grab things out of it. Bravo, Alana. Next, please. I want to be part of this group. I want to hang out with these ladies. They look so fun. This is such a great painting. Again, just unique, great abstract qualities, great realistic qualities. Every figure, they look like they all belong together, and yet they're all so unique. Love the title. Why did I buy that? One lady's already kind of digging her bag, having second thoughts. And the lady in the middle is definitely kind of agonizing. Just great expressions on the ladies. Super well done. Super fun painting to look at. I love the design, the handling, all their different shirts, the patterns in their shirts and clothes and everything. Bravo. Nice work. Next, please. Day spa. You know, a spa is just a place to get away and relax and unwind. And I'm sure, you know, for most ladies, that means a place where there's just no sign of any manly influence anywhere. You got the flowers, the plants, the fruit, the pillows, the sensuous forms of the female, you know, these are just a well-designed, thought out, planned painting. The figure, the mysterious figure in the back, just kind of blending into the rest of the background there. But yeah, I like this painting quite a bit also. Who's this? Pat Renner. Nice. Next, please. Contemplating. Yet another. It was just so many good portraits. I have people ask me if I paint portraits, and I'm like, no. What? There's so many good portrait artists. No, I would not be able to even begin to compete with any of that. Yet another one, a striking portrait. I love it. Contemplating. And, you know, for whatever reason, I think most of the time contemplating maybe has a little bit more of a serious connotation to it. You know, you would think about a person having a little bit more of a concerned look on their face, or, you know, something to that regard. But I love the fact that this person was contemplating, obviously, something pleasing in nature. She's got that nice little charming smile on her face. And yeah, it's and the brushwork, once again, those beautiful, strong strokes that say so much with so little, and the placement is just right. I love seeing expressive portraits. This is a really nice one. Well done, Deborah. Oh, I just noticed that was yours, Debbie. Nice. Congratulations. Canyon Stream. It's a shame that hopefully when you get the catalog, or you can see a little bit larger image of this, but the whole painting is great. I love the handling of the foliage up above and the light and the color. Obviously that emerald color glowing through everything is almost lends a storybook feeling to this landscape. But looking at the rocks below through that water, that's handled so convincingly. The way that the ones right at the surface, halfway in the surface, and then down below was really, really well done. And the eye, once again, just kind of travels through this painting. It's got busier areas where it has a bit more rendering, and then nice areas, restful areas, and then a busy area, and then a restful area. And it all holds together really well. And placing that dark rock right where the light is streaming through there to really emphasize it was a good choice. Congratulations. Next, please. Plaza in the old city of Jerusalem. I like it. It's almost got a Frank Webb look to it. Again, kind of that abstraction, half realism, adds such a great energy and expressiveness to the painting. I love the old school feeling to it with all the men in hats and the architecture and the fountain there, and just a great use of planning of values too, like where the light shapes are against dark shapes, where the dark shapes are against light shapes, and the simplification of those buildings are just it's awesome. I love it. The city doesn't have to be all straight lines, right? Yeah, that's so cool. Nice work. Next, please. Morning after. Beautiful depiction of snow. Snow is not easy to paint. And in particular, I love the fact that this artist put the snow shadows on in much the same way that he handled the sky, just very subtly, not a ton of drama or big, huge value shifts. The shadows raking across the snow are just almost a value, maybe two values darker than the snow itself. And yet you still get a nice sense of light here. Once again, the way the buildings are framed by the use of the darker trees behind it is very well done. But first and foremost, that tree and front left there is that's really well depicted. It's a tricky thing to make a branch look like it's coming out at you. That's why everybody paints branches going off to the side in their trees all the time. And this one looks like that branch is definitely coming right out at us. That's very well done. Congratulations. Next, please. Celebs and Entourage. That's a pretty cool title too, right? You get the celebrities and all the little people around them. What impressed me the most about this one when I looked at it is just such a great sense of those cast shadows on all the little forms throughout it. One petal, the stamen on that top one in front of the shadow underneath it. The next petal casting the shadow, just all the little cast shadows from one petal to the next. It took a lot of really keen observation skills. Even the leaves in the background, the shadows on them, and the stem up at the top has a couple of very subtle cast shadows on it. That kind of thing is really, really important, and too many people don't even notice it. So I appreciated the observation skills it took on this. Nice job. Next, please. The Sailor's Song. Nice, fresh interior. Not over painted, despite the fact that these forms are very complex. The way that ship was handled is remarkable. The amount of information that is there without being painted. We know exactly what it is, and the piano keyboard. I love the way that the grid-like structure of the window panes and the shadows of them on the ground, and then those organic forms of the curtains and the sails on the boat. Are all kind of playing off each other nicely, and then the piano in the middle that kind of contains both the curved forms and the linear forms, kind of tying it all together. It's a nice design and nicely handled. Good painting, Ron. Next, please. I love the colors in this. There's some colors that I've just rarely seen before. I don't know how this artist managed to achieve some of the colors on these boats, the hulls of the boats and the reflections. It's got this boldness to it, but yet a softness as well. I'm not sure what the surface is, but just a really beautifully rendered painting. And I love the way the artist made the decision of what boats to render a little bit more strongly and where to back off a little bit. Obviously those two front left boats and the one in particular front left, but then the one right next to it is almost like a ghostly ship, you know, even though it's at the same level. That was really important to make that decision and keep the focus in the painting. And the one behind that, the second row back, which technically should have less detail, has more detail than that one. It just kind of keeps the eye in the painting. And it's got a great design, and again, just very convincing sense of textures and forms. Loved it. Next, please. Talk about convincing textures and forms. Exhibit A right here. Everywhere. I mean, you can tell this artist loves to paint textures. That's amazing. The bricks, the stone, the metallic rooftop, and then the coup de grace, that large tree on the left. Once again, how beautifully convincing that is. The branches coming in and out from all different directions. Very impressive work, Jeannie. And I love that you can see right through that window, directly through it to the backside, tying all the painting together. Next, please. Oh, this is just such a beautiful painting too. Love the direct viewpoint, looking straight down on these forms, which makes it really tricky to paint some of these forms, obviously, but also the way the artist kind of incorporated this, the changing of going back and forth from squares to circles. You've got the square format of the painting, obviously, and then the square shape of the mat, and then the larger circular paintings of the teapot and the plate, and then the circular forms of the teacup and the orange slices, and then the square shapes of the tea packets and the little label or the little handle sticking down there off of there, and then the smaller round shapes of the grapes on the pattern, just back and forth, square circles, all the way down. Finding a beautiful balance of that, so well designed. And again, you know, the skill to create these textures, but it's the design first and foremost that impresses me about this one. Nice painting. Next, please. Shy boy. What a great expression. Oh my gosh. I saw this painting and I just was, you just know this kid, you know what I mean? He looks like Dennis the Menace. Such a beautiful capture of an expression. I'm in awe of people that can get that much emotion out of a painting. And yeah, and it's, again, out of all the portraits, this one of the little boy just kind of stood out as something really unique. And yeah, well done. Tanya Zhao is a master. Can we take a short break? Just a 5-minute pause? Is that okay? Okay, I'll be back in 5. Sorry.
Well, okay. I suppose that I should sing or something, but I guess this is an opportunity for everyone to take a 3 or 4 minute break and come back and we'll finish up. So it is 6:13 and he'll probably be back about 6:16 or so. So I think we're all in agreement that we've seen some beautiful art tonight. I saw a comment in the chat. Someone said that they loved the variety, and I think that's absolutely true. Such variety, and I am amazed that there are so many people of such talent in this world, and we are really talking about just 75 people. I mean, I'm looking at these and I don't think I can choose my own favorite. And I know that's hard for some of you too. But they are all incredible. And you can spend time with these online. As soon as we finish up tonight, these will all be, the gallery will open online. So you can go back and study all of these one at a time. You can enlarge them and go through them and study them. And you can do that as often as you like, as well as if you'd like to hear Andy's comments again, this recording will be up. You don't have to be a member to see this recording. So you'll be able to come back and watch the entire reception again. So, okay, he's back.
Nice, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I heard your remark about being in awe of how much talent out there. And that's definitely, judging it's obviously a great honor, but, in so many ways, it's like, I'm not worthy. Who am I to sit in judgment of all these incredibly talented people? It's, it's definitely a double-edged sword. It's an honor to be asked to judge these shows, but you're well aware of the fact that, you're just another in the vast array of wealth of artistic talent out there in the world right now. So kudos to everybody. Okay. Yeah. Boy, I love that portrait. Next, please. Merriment. Very fun, realistic with painting with a great abstract design. It's not easy to paint a painting with this many strong colors throughout, all these bold primary colors, and have it still hold together. That takes a lot of thought about design, the arrangement of the objects and all those kind of things to make sure that it doesn't get too busy everywhere. And this one works in that regard, I think. Again, there's color everywhere, but the way the shapes are all kind of arranged, they're still pointing towards the star of the show for the most part. A lot of the little toys and things are directing our eye to where the viewer or where the artist wants us to look. And then of course that shape of the top, the stem of that top sticking out and casting the shadow down is kind of the main focal area amongst all of it. So impressive work. Well done. Next, please. Oh, another just a beautiful, subtle landscape, grays everywhere, neutrals and grays. That feeling of being along the ocean coast. This is just so convincing with a minimum of fuss. The sky is just absolutely gorgeous. The hills are, the way the hills recede into the distance is sublimely done. The water breaking around the rocks, those little marks of water, again, just the powers of observation to notice those kinds of things, the skill that it takes to handle all those different textures so simply and so convincingly, and then a sense of subtlety and awareness that to paint this whole thing with these beautiful neutrals and grays, and it just sings. It's such a beautiful, beautiful painting. I love it. Nice job, David. Next, please. Choral chorus line. Fun painting, great design. Once again, paying attention to dark shapes against light, light shapes against dark, all kind of held together with those that beautiful complementary color scheme. Love the title, love the boldness of it. Love the way you handled the textures of the flamingos. Really cool painting, Lorraine. Thank you. Next, please. Amaryllis. Unusual design, unusual portrait, having that kind of cropped off or added piece with the flower over there on the side. I don't know if it's the design, if it's around the corner, if it's a different way of designing the painting, but it works. And I like how the figure is balanced the same way as the flower, sitting there with the green stem of the flower, and obviously the red blossoms, and the figure has the green shorts, a little bit of that green in her shirt, and then it's all topped off with the red scarf. So getting that sense of the kind of the metaphor of the gal being the amaryllis is I thought was pretty unique and creative. And once again, great textures and everything else. Very convincing portrait. Nice painting. Next, please. Watchers of a Changing World. Very charming little piece. Very expressive. Over the last couple of years, I know a lot of people have been shut in, and as most of us are, but some people more than others, literally having to observe the world from looking through a window. And this kind of gives that sense also, looking through a window pane at all four seasons. A nice vibrant sunset, flowers of spring, fall, leaves starting to come down, somebody sledding down a winter hill, just kind of watching the world pass by through the window pane. Nice expressive little painting. Well done, Rose. Next, please. Glowing glass. Just a remarkable facility of painting glass, and not only the glass, but in particular the reflections of the glass onto the surface below, and the way they kind of intermingle with the reflections of the pieces of glass next to them. I love the variety of colors in there. Yeah, beautifully designed, beautifully handled. Nice painting. Next, please. The Longing. This beautiful young gal looking out the window that definitely has, I mean, her face says it all. What is she longing for? Love, a new life, possibilities in the future, whatever it might be, but you definitely get that sense from her pose and her expression. Love the way you were able to get that skin tone of that through the sheer sleeves and neckline of that blouse so convincingly, and then those beautiful little brush strokes to show the pattern on there. Very, very well done. Nice work. Next, please. Great subject. Great title. Something, again, so unique. I love seeing different things. I'm blown away by the creativity of people and the subjects they choose, and the skill that they employ in handling their paintings. It's just really, I mean, it's almost like you can smell the moss when you look at this painting. Great colors, great rich colors on there. Sense of form. That rotting stump that looks like if you just brushed against it, it would snap and fall over. It's on its last legs. Very creative, well-handled piece. Thanks, Suze. Next, please. A lot of night. I like the ones on those white backgrounds too. I was kind of pleased to see people doing some of these things and just leaving that background white. It was kind of fun to see. Paris Street. There's a rainy scene again. The juxtaposition of the other one, where now we do have a lot of softness of forms, but there's still a lot of nice hard edges and kind of an energetic sparkle to this painting as well. Again, life doesn't just stop because it's raining outside. In a big city like this, there's still going to be great energy and activity, and all these little staccato lights that are left behind underneath shapes, some of them little opaque marks, the tops of the umbrellas and highlights and things, and birds. Adds such a great energy to this whole scene. I love the broken brushstroke of the lampposts coming down so that they're not too solid and obtrusive. And just a gorgeous color scheme too. That complementary color scheme works really well. Work. Next, please. Tibetan Old Patriarch. Yet another amazing portrait. I think you can get a sense of how difficult it was for me to judge this show. Where to even start. But once again, impressive handling of forms, textures, design. I like how the background shows a little bit of who this person is as well as the costume that he's wearing. And despite the kind of extravagance, I guess, of what he's wearing. He still kind of comes across as a very gentle, humble man. Just a man, what a beautiful painting once again. I admire you all. Next, please. Oh, the drum roll. All right, here's where I make 12 friends and a bunch of enemies. All right. Number one, this is the Northwest Watercolor Society Membership Award, and this comes with a 5-year free membership to Northwest Watercolor Society. So congratulations, David. Home, Sunday afternoon. You know, when you think of home, what do you think of? Warm feelings, comfort, a place where you can just kind of put your feet up and not worry about it. I love the design of this painting. I love the emotion of this painting. The restful areas juxtaposed against, you know, a little more rendered painted areas of the rug and the little blanket the dog is sleeping on. The way your eye just, there's something nice to look at all through this painting as your eye travels through it. I love the colors on the cushions of that sofa, and then the way she's just sunken into there. That dog is adorable. Then you go back to that comfortable looking chair up there in the corner. Again, it's what home is. It's a place to put your feet up and relax, and you don't have to worry about impressing anyone and do your thing. Even back to that little table in the background that's just barely indicated. Kind of every home has a little kitchen table or area with folding chairs like that, where people gather and to visit and talk and have a drink or play a game or something. And this whole painting just gave me a real nice feeling, and I was impressed with it. Congratulations, David. Well done. I like the little addition of the tennis ball too. Like that's why the dog has crashed. Next, please. It looks like my couch. Yeah, see, it's home. All right. Picture, Pears and Berries, Chris Krupinski. Obviously, Chris is a master at, you know, creating convincing textures, and she's such a good designer. The way she designs with light and shadow, the placement of the objects, you know, just the balance of the light and shade in this painting. It's actually the shadows where most of the interest is. That's important. I remember hearing one of the oil landscape painters at the plenary convention talk about this while he was demonstrating. You either need to have emphasize the light or the shadow. Don't emphasize both. And, you know, Chris, yeah, there's some beautiful light on the sides of the pears and some of those forms, but when you get to the blanket, you know, the forms are a bit more flattened out, and those light areas, it's where the shadows are, where she starts to really kind of notice the little subtle differences of the textures and patterns in things, the side of that picture, the interior of the picture versus, you know, the flatness of where the light is hitting it. So yeah, again, the powers of observation of Chris is always a wonder to behold. I love the fact that she had the mouth of that picture is pear shaped. That is a really cool design decision to place here with all the pears. It just makes it so it's not standing there alone. It still ties in with the rest of the painting. And even the decision to leave the sticker on the side of that pear, I think was important, because it picks up some of those little violets and blues from the blanket and the blackberries and things around it, then puts it up on the pear instead of just kind of a reflected bounced light. That little shape stuck onto the pear was a great decision. And again, all of this on top of just an amazing skill with the medium. Definitely an award winner. Thanks, Chris. Next, please. The Dr. Philip Martins Award, Renaissance Woman. So first of all, if you haven't gathered already, I have a great admiration for paintings that look like they were painted effortlessly, but nothing could be further from the truth. This is another in a long line of amazing portraits that I had to contend with while judging this show. But I love the lost edges throughout this painting. The face, the way the eyes are just kind of blending in with the shadow going into the background, the shadow under her nose coming right into her mouth. Those areas of mystery where you're really taking advantage of the medium of watercolor, things that I talked about a lot in my workshop this week. When I do those value studies and connect shapes, that's where the real charm of watercolor shines. And this artist really managed to get a lot of that softness and lost edges in this portrait, but convincingly. I mean, it's not just floating out, not defining anything. Those lost edges are so well handled that we know exactly what this girl looks like, despite not everything being spelled out for us. The shoulder of her shirt, that's incredible. I looked at that for so long, trying to think I would have no chance of painting that like that well. It looks like kind of a flannel, gray brown shirt, and it's done in like 4 brushstrokes. It's incredible. The shape of it, the shape of the brushstrokes, the colors, the way they overlap. That takes so much confidence and skill. I can't even begin to tell you. So beautiful, beautiful painting. And then it's all, finished off with those lyrical little light, beautiful brush marks indicating the hair blowing around her face. Love this painting. Well done. Next, please. Transformation. It was kind of funny when when I saw this painting, I was like, it feels like the Big Bang or something, going through a big change, something bursting forth. So perfect title for this. You kind of get that sense of something just bursting free, that transformation of energy. It's not often. Most abstract paintings that you see have a bit more of a linear quality to them in some way, and this is all just kind of shapes and organic forms, but it still holds together very well. I love it. It's a beautifully expressive piece. When you squint at it a little bit, you kind of realize, if you kind of half close your eyes, it feels like 75% of the painting is that chalky white background, and you don't realize it until you squint your eyes like that, because those shapes are so nicely handled. The rest of the design is beautiful. Yeah, this is one of those paintings that you can just look at and keep discovering more depending on your mood and what's going on. Congratulations, Lisa. Next, please. Gladness. It's kind of funny when I talk to my students in my workshops and I tell them, what you think painting a street is hard, try painting a field of flowers. And then come and talk to me about how difficult it is to paint a street. Fields of flowers are a nightmare to paint. I can't even imagine. And the way this artist handled this painting is nothing short of remarkable. The amount of detail that is in the green leafy area, but yet it doesn't compete at all with the flowers because of the beautiful colors in the flowers. There's just enough of a value shift back there to show that that you're looking through and underneath these flowers, but in a way you almost don't even notice it, despite the time that obviously went into creating all those convincing forms. The care that the artist took of the spacing of the blossoms, the size of the blossoms, the negative spaces between them. Nature is so random, and this painting does a really nice job of kind of walking that line between, is it a wild field of flowers or a garden, that somebody planted? But you get a sense of that, definitely kind of that wildness of the field of flowers through that randomness of the color choices. And I like the fact that the white blossoms start about halfway up the page. If you look at the top of the field of flowers, there's definitely almost half and half colorful blossoms and white blossoms. And that was important too, not just the scale of the blossoms going back, but the fact that there was less color back there to give the feeling of depth and dropping off. and she kind of started those the white blossoms about halfway up, and the bottom half of the painting has just color. I don't know if that was a conscious choice or not, but it works very well. And each individual little blossom is just a beauty to behold. I love especially those dark ones in the foreground, those dark burgundy ones. Looks like you can just reach out and grab them. Nicely done, Catherine. Congratulations. Next, please. Steam engine in Georgetown. You know, going back to all those formal elements of painting that I talked about, design, light, shape, form, composition, you know, this painting has it all. Obviously, great design, wonderful sense of light, excellent use of color, despite the fact that he's painting an old steam engine. You know, you see a lot of paintings these days of rusted shapes and forms. And this is obviously an old rusting steam engine, but it's painted with violets and turquoises and warm yellows, and so he wasn't relying on color to depict this. It's all in the textures that he was able to create, and it's not overdone. There's just enough of it in areas to give you a sense of what's happening in there. There's not a focal point, you know. Again, there's going back to a lot of the other paintings I talked about. There's something, your eye just kind of travels through the painting, and I like that. You know, there's, I guess if there was an area of main contrast, it's almost right there in the middle, but it doesn't throw me off or anything. The placement of it, where you're first kind of going underneath, turning the corner and going under where that dark shape is. But love the color choices, love the design, love the fact that he did this from this perspective, almost laying on the ground at the level of the rails. So you just have a little bit of that rail that just gives you that much more sense of the size and the weight of this big old steam engine. Really, really cool painting. Nice job, Peter. Congratulations. Next, please. Looking behind the door. Nicholas Lopez is, I had the good fortune of watching him paint in Italy this past year when we were there for an international watercolor festival. I'd never seen his process before, and it's pretty amazing how intuitive he is. I feel like you could name almost every one of his paintings looking behind the door, because they all kind of walk this line between reality and the world beyond. You know, he gets this sense of, I don't know, the way he creates these forms, these organic forms creeping in. It's unsettling in a lot of ways, but very, it's just awe-inspiring looking at his paintings, and the fact that they're black and white, I think, adds to that as well. That feeling, there's not a lot of color in it, so it's just kind of these, you know, they all look kind of wintry or abandoned and bleak. And but maybe it's just my personality, but I love that, and that's why I live in Minnesota. But no, he's an amazing talent, and I appreciate people going back to what I was talking about with Debbie at the beginning, how easy it is for us to, you know, paint like other people, and I'm no exception. Full disclosure, I love the British artists. I love painting like my idols, and I have a healthy respect for people who develop their own style, and we've seen Nicholas isn't alone in that regard. I've pointed to several people in this throughout this award ceremony who have managed to develop a unique style, and that's not easy to do in this day and age. That's kind of the sign of a true artist, I think, and Nicholas definitely qualifies. I'm always impressed with his paintings. Well done. Next, please. The boys, just outstanding. Yes, they're boys, but they're kind of at that age where they're young men. They know better than everybody, you know, almost like little street toughs walking around with their shirts off. You know, their physiques are getting to the point they're starting to fill out. They're not boys anymore. The way they're dressed, their wardrobe, that kid's shorts hanging down with his underwear sticking on the top, you know, that obnoxious fad that I hope goes away soon. But love the way she handled the subject, first and foremost. Love the fact that she used, I mean, what do you associate with the children's toys? They're all primary colors, you know, red, yellow, and blue. And, you know, these kids that she has, they're using these primary colors to paint this. But again, they're not really kids anymore. One of them looks like he's ready to light up a cigarette and everything too. So just kind of a really cool painting of that time in life, an awkward time in life, an exciting time of life. She captured the energy of these guys just beautifully. And once again, like so many others, great design. The light of that guy's ball cap in front of the dark doorway, the dark shorts in front of the yellow wall, the dark hair in front of the white pillar, you know, paying attention to where you can lose edges, the dark shorts merging into the black, the dark of the wall or the doorway behind it. Great combination of lost edges and found edges. A lot of thought went into the design and placement of things here. Nicely done. Next, please. Renovation. Great example of it's not what you paint, it's how you paint it. Okay. I've seen this artist on Instagram. Don't really know what he looks like or even what country he's from actually, but I do follow his work, and he's a plein air painter. He paints a lot of these on location, and I'm always blown away by the scene that he paints and what comes off on his paper. His ability to filter it down to the essence, these beautiful, simple shapes with such great energy, and he captures wonderful light. The fact that he has so much light in his shadows and color in here is, I'm sure, is a direct result of how much he paints on location. Because people who paint from photographs tend to go too dark and heavy in their shadows. That's what cameras do to them. But when you're standing there on location, your eye sees into those areas and you pick up a lot more of it. And despite he didn't have to go that heavy on the shadow of the wall, it still has a really good feeling, a strong sunlight, beautiful color. And then the way he's able to capture the gesture of that guy on the scaffolding and all the little marks of the leaves and foliage and the little lanterns, the lamps on the wall out in front of there, just so, you know, that facility with the brush doesn't just happen, you know, and a lot of people never get there. It really takes a good comfort level. That was another thing I talked about in my workshop this week. If you want your paintings to look nice and loose and bold, don't draw everything. Get a comfort, maybe indicate where the largest shapes are, but you've got to gain a comfort level of just painting some of these smaller shapes. And that's what gives them that energy. And this artist does it so well. Thought it was deserving of an award. Congratulations. Next, please. 3 Ages of Peony. This was one that going through almost immediately as I was going through, I was like, yeah, that one's in. Wow. Gorgeous, soft colors. I mean, that's what struck me initially with the textures, the softness, the colors, the luminosity of it. And then when I saw the title and started thinking about the story of it, you know, the 3 ages, the baby in the cup, you know, the new little sprout. And how charming is it that it looks like it's almost reaching out for the grandparent, you know, out of the cup with his little arms waiting to be picked up. I just love that expressiveness. And then again, just the thought that goes into designing and coming up with something like this. When do we want to have ourselves presented to the world? When we're most beautiful, right? You know, that golden age when our colors are good. And so the framed portrait of the peonies on the wall, that's that glorious age, you know, before you start to get old again and losing the color and starting to wither. And just so well thought out, so well handled, just a really beautiful painting. I wish this one was on my wall. Congratulations. Next, please. Trivial Pursuit. I'll say again, this artist also submitted multiple paintings. And in looking at them, I could tell that they have not, they've developed a very unique style in the way they create their abstracts. It was consistent throughout, and it was difficult for me to choose. I knew I wanted one of them in the show, and it was difficult for me to choose which one. But the way this artist kind of created this scene, you get a sense. I love the title, Trivial Pursuit, because even without that title, it almost looks like there's this little energetic area of activity around some sofas and chairs and things in a living room, right? Where everybody's gathered for the evening. And I'm a sucker for these abstracts that kind of tell a narrative too and make you think and kind of anthropomorphize in a way, and come up with something that's happening there. And you do get that sense with all this activity around, with these kind of suggested chair shapes around it. And then even the little, some of the letters and things coming out, I don't know if they're from board games or the conversations that are happening around the game, but really cool, thoughtful abstract. And it struck a chord with me, and I wanted to make sure it got an award. So congratulations, Kay. Next, please. Oh, I'll let someone from Northwest Watercolor Society talk about this, because this is the purchase award, but I'll just say, beautiful painting. I've been to China 8 times. I've seen landscapes like this. Really glad that they chose to purchase this for their collection and give you an award, John, because it's very well deserving. Someone from Northwest Watercolor Society want to talk about it, or?
Andy,
Yeah.
I personally was not part of this. I have been chair of an open exhibition before and had the pleasure of helping to select a purchase award winner. But I personally was not part of this one. But any purchase award that we make is someone that we think is really important to the world of watercolor, and someone that we haven't selected before, and a painting that we know is going to be cherished besides being a beautiful piece. So this will fit in really, really nicely with a permanent collection, because it's a beautiful piece, and John does always gorgeous work. So very well chosen.
Yes, good choice. I commend you. Well done. I got to get one too, right?
Sure.
All right, great. Okay, onto the top 3 here now. Olive. This has as much emotion as any of the portraits of the people, if not more. It's such an odd thing when how much we sympathize and enjoy or feel more strongly about animals than people at times. You're watching a movie and there's 20 people are getting killed, and then the dog gets shot and everybody's like, oh my god, they killed the dog. But yeah, this portrait is just packed with emotion and feeling. That eye is just so soulful looking at us. And it's not it looks like obviously a dog that's been around a while, maybe not in the prime of life anymore, but the whole thing is really kind of given an elegance in the design and the viewpoint of it, looking straight at it, down on its own level. Instead of looking down on it as an owner, we're kind of putting ourselves down on the level of the dog and looking out on the horizon. It just kind of creates another level of majesty looking at it. And boy, in addition to the emotional impact of it all, once again, just an amazing facility with textures, fur, that collar. It just kind of looks like, again, if there was an old lady who wanted to pose for a portrait and have one of her old favorite pieces of jewelry or an old scarf that she's loved forever, and put on for her portrait, that this is what the dog is wearing. And and just something as little as the variety in the shape of the eyes. The one looking at us is wide open and the other one is down, drooping a little bit. Paying attention to those kinds of things makes such a huge difference as well, I think. Again, the the power of observation that goes into some of these beautifully rendered paintings just blows me away. It's impressive work. And then just looking at that whole bottom corner of the grass, it doesn't compete at all with the dog, obviously, but there's just enough texture in there to an indication of form that you know what it is. This is a really, really beautiful painting. Congratulations. Next, please. This painting, it brought a smile to my face every time I saw it. I went through the show so many times, the paintings, I kept coming back to this one, and every time I came back to it, I would smile, or if not chuckle. I just love it. I love this guy. He looks like some character you would run into at a cafe in Europe somewhere over and over again. I love that it has some almost like a cubist kind of breakup of the space. You know, the cubists didn't want to show form rendered, you know, with perspective and realistically. They kind of flattened out the forms because they're working on a two-dimensional surface, as we all are, and looking at things from different angles and points of view and planes. And the way that we're kind of looking straight at this guy, and then the table surfaces are tipped up a little bit to show the forms of the loaf of bread and the pitcher. And you know, everything is just kind of reduced to some of these large, simple shapes. Again, you know, the division of space, and it works so well. The angles of the tile going up the wall, creating that big, dark, dramatic shadow, and all of it framing that awesome expression on his face. I just, man, I love that painting so much. Again, thank you for putting in a painting that I love seeing things that aren't a lot of the same old, and I thought it maybe looks simple to paint this way, but I couldn't do it. And I wish I saw the world through glasses like this. I think it's a really unique vision and a very charming painting. Congratulations. Next, please. And first place, waiting patiently. And I will repeat myself as I say, I don't think I could paint this no matter how hard I tried. It is so impressive. The subtlety of the color shifts in the face of this horse is nothing short of remarkable. It looks like it has beautiful, large, soft transitions of color, and yet in there are all these really small, important, subtle light shapes to indicate, you know, tendons and sinews and veins and things in there, but it's not overdone. And the light colors in the face, and then the strength on the neck of those amazing rich colors. And I don't know how the artist created this. I don't know if it was poured and sprayed or painted with a brush or whatever. But again, I looked at it over and over and over again, and I am just so impressed with the skill and the handling. It's an incredible portrait, just like Olive with the dog. This portrait of this horse. Once again, the use of just the white background to really emphasize the power. It could have been real easy to put a pasture, you know, and a barn in the background and clouds in the sky. It doesn't always need that, you know. It's got Dean Mitchell doesn't do that either. He does a lot of his portraits and uses the white space of the background to really give the most visual impact. And I'm just, yeah, so impressed with the fact that it's painted realistically, but expressively enough that it still embraces what makes watercolor such a beautiful, unique medium. And that's the softness, the lost edges, a little bit of the, you know, carefree attitude in spots. And it just put it all together for me. So congratulations. It's a beautiful work, and it belongs on somebody's wall. Congratulations to everybody. Thank you for this task. I apologize if you don't agree with my decisions, and that always happens. It's not an easy job. If you didn't get an award, try again next time, just like we all do.
Well, Andy, we've had in our chat comments, it's been really nice to see everyone so delighted and congratulatory to almost every painting as they came up. They were saying beautiful, love this, and that was great. And then we've had a lot of people express their consideration and express their gratitude rather for the way you talked about every painting, because I know that's a difficult thing to do 75 times.
Yeah.
So everybody was really happy to it. I mean, we all learn so much when that happens. We learn about the paintings, we learn about how you think. And so here they come again. Awesome job, Andy. Thank you. I love all your comments. They just keep going.
That's
So
great.
thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Molly, if you could put up our patrons card. Oh, and once more, you can purchase artwork at by calling Shirley, our treasurer, or you can also get the same information at the website in case you don't want to screenshot this. But everything's for sale. And we do have some wonderful, outstanding patrons. We cherish them. We have to thank them because they are so supportive of the arts, and in particular NWWS. We couldn't put on these exhibitions with the awards that we have without their assistance. So we love every one of them, and I'd like to especially mention our 2 Platinum Plus donors, Daniel Smith and Salus International, Dr. P.H. Martins, because when you're a Platinum Plus patron, you're contributing to us at least $2,000 in cash or awards. So thank you, thank you, thank you to our Platinum Plus patrons and all of our patrons. And as you all consider purchasing art materials, if you'll just keep these wonderful supporters in mind and choose their products first. So we thank you all for attending tonight. We've loved sharing these gorgeous paintings from all around the world. Thank you again, Andy, for being such a jewel of a juror. And thank you to all of our members and volunteers. Good night, everyone.
Thanks again for having me.
You bet.
Congratulations.
Good night. Thank you.